The sound of my father's laughter stopped me cold in the hallway. Not because it was unusual, Dad laughed plenty, but because of what came next. She'll be fine, he said, his voice carrying through the crack in his office door. Margaret's used to managing. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. Through the gap, I could see the glow of his laptop screen, Emily's face beaming back at him through video chat. Are you sure about selling the house, though? Emily's voice crackled through the speakers. I mean, what about Margaret? My mother's voice joined in, that familiar, dismissive tone I knew so well. Oh, she's gotten 6 years of free rent. She'll figure something out. Free rent. 6 years of free rent. My name is Margaret, and I'm 38 years old. For the past 6 years, I've been my parents' live in caregiver, watching their health decline while my own life disappeared piece by piece. I gave up my marketing job, my apartment, my dating life, everything, because they needed me, because they promised me this house would be mine someday. The gallery space is perfect, Emily continued, her excitement bubbling through the connection. Prince found this amazing location in the arts district. We just need the down payment. Consider it done, sweetheart, Dad said. Your mother and I already talked to the realtor. The house should sell for enough to get you started properly. I gripped the door frame so hard my knuckles went white. The house. Our family home. The place I'd been promised since I moved back in to help them after Dad's first heart attack. You're the best, Daddy, Emily gushed. I can't wait to show you the business plan Prince put together. This is going to change everything for us. We're so proud of you, honey, Mom chimed in. Following your dreams, building something beautiful. That's what matters. I backed away from the door on shaking legs, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor I'd been mopping for 6 years. The same floor I'd paced at 3 a.m. when Dad had chest pains. The same floor I'd scrubbed when Mom's medication made her sick. In the kitchen, I stared at the pill organizers lined up on the counter, 7 days worth of medications I sorted every Sunday. Dad's heart pills, blood thinners, cholesterol medication, Mom's arthritis drugs, blood pressure pills, the antidepressants she'd needed since her fall last year. The refrigerator hummed, covered in Emily's postcards from her travels: Prague, Barcelona, Tokyo, each one signed with "Love you, living the dream," while I lived in what felt more like a nightmare with each passing day. My phone buzzed. A text from Bailey, my old friend from nursing school. Coffee tomorrow? I have gossip. I typed back, can't. Dad has a cardiology appointment. Again? Girl, when's the last time you left that house for something fun? I stared at the screen, trying to remember. When was the last time I'd done anything for myself? When was the last time I'd even wanted to? The laptop snapped shut in Dad's office, followed by the sound of his walker scraping across the floor. I quickly busied myself wiping down counters that were already clean. Margaret, Mom called from the living room, could you bring me my evening pills? And maybe some of that herbal tea? Coming, Mom. I prepared her tea the way she liked it: 2 sugars, splash of milk, and gathered her pills. The same routine I'd followed for 290 days. I'd counted. She was settled in her recliner, the one that cost more than I used to make in a month, watching some home renovation show. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here you go. I set everything on her side table. Thank you, dear. Oh, your father and I were just talking to Emily. She's doing so well with her art. We're very proud. That's nice. The words tasted like ash. She's finally found her calling, you know? It's wonderful when someone discovers their purpose. I nodded, swallowing the bitter laugh that wanted to escape. My purpose, apparently, was to be invisible, to manage, to be fine with whatever scraps were left after Emily got her dreams funded. Will you need anything else tonight? I asked. No, dear. You're such a good daughter. So dependable. Dependable. The word that had defined my entire adult life. Not brilliant like Emily, not artistic or passionate or worthy of dreams. Just dependable. I climbed the stairs to my childhood bedroom, the same room I'd had at 16, now equipped with a baby monitor so I could hear if my parents needed me in the night. The walls were still painted the pale yellow I'd chosen in high school, back when I thought I'd leave for college and never look back. On my desk sat a stack of journals, 6 years worth of daily logs, medical appointments, medication schedules, grocery lists, household repairs. Everything documented with the obsessive detail of someone who'd learned that being thorough was the only way to be valued. I opened the most recent journal and wrote, Day 2190, Dad's cardiology appointment tomorrow at 2 p.m., Mom's arthritis flaring up again, Emily getting the house. My hand trembled as I wrote those last four words. Emily getting the house that was supposed to be my future, my security, my reward for 6 years of sacrifice. I closed the journal and stared at the stack. 6 years of my life, reduced to medical schedules and grocery receipts. 6 years of putting everyone else first while my own dreams withered and died. But maybe, just maybe, those journals were worth more than I'd realized. The next morning, I tested them. Mom, I was thinking about taking a weekend trip to visit Bailey, I said, setting down her breakfast tray. She's been asking me to come see her new place. Mom looked up from her oatmeal, frowning. This weekend? But your father has that follow up appointment Monday, and I have physical therapy Tuesday. I could leave Saturday morning and come back Sunday night. Margaret, you know how anxious I get when you're not here. What if something happens? What if your father has another episode? Dad shuffled into the kitchen, Walker squeaking. What's this about you leaving? Just a weekend trip to see Bailey. His face darkened. Now's not really the time for vacations, is it? We're dealing with serious health issues here. I poured his coffee, adding the exact amount of cream he preferred. It's been 6 years since I've taken a weekend off. 6 years of living rent free, Mom said sharply. Some people would call that a pretty good deal. There it was. The phrase from last night's call, delivered with surgical precision. Right, I said. Rent free. Don't take that tone with me, young lady. We've been more than generous, letting you stay here while you figure out your next steps. Figure out my next steps, as if I'd been lounging around instead of managing their entire lives. What next steps? I asked. I thought this was my home now. My parents exchanged a look, the kind of look that said they were dealing with a difficult child. Well, eventually you'll want to get back out there, Dad said. Find your own place, maybe meet someone. You can't live with us forever. I gave up my apartment to move in here. We said you could stay as long as you needed, Mom interrupted. And we meant it. But surely you don't expect to inherit the house just because you've been helping out. Helping out. 6 years of round the clock care reduced to helping out. I excused myself and called Bailey from my room. They're going to sell the house, I said without preamble. What? But I thought. So did I. They're giving the money to Emily for some art gallery. Bailey was quiet for a moment. Margaret, please tell me you have some kind of documentation. Receipts? Agreements? Something. I looked at my stack of journals. I have everything. Every doctor's appointment, every prescription pickup, every grocery run, 6 years of logs. Good, that's good. But do you have anything showing they promised you the house? My heart sank. Just their word. Okay, but the caregiving, that's documented? The hours, the tasks, everything. Obsessively. Margaret, listen to me. I've seen this before. Families take advantage of the caregiver child, then act like they did you a favor. But there are laws about this stuff. What do you mean? I mean, you might have more power than you think. Can you meet me for coffee? I want to introduce you to someone. An hour later, I sat across from Bailey in a small cafe downtown. It felt surreal to be outside the house, like I was playing hooky from my own life. Dave's a lawyer, Bailey explained as a tall man with graying temples approached our table. He specializes in elder care disputes. Dave shook my hand and sat down. Bailey tells me you've been caring for your parents for 6 years. Yes, but full time care? Meaning you live there, handle their medications, medical appointments, household management? All of it, but they're family. I can't charge family. Dave smiled grimly. Says who? Did you sign a contract agreeing to work for free? No, but Margaret, Bailey interrupted. Show him the journals. I pulled out the most recent one, my hands shaking slightly. Dave flipped through pages of meticulous entries. 7 a.m., Dad's morning meds. 8 a.m., Mom's breakfast, pureed due to swallowing issues. 10 a.m., drive to cardiologist. 2 p.m., pharmacy run. 4 p.m., physical therapy exercises with Mom. 6 p.m., dinner prep, special diet requirements. 9 p.m., evening medications. 11 p.m., help Dad to bathroom. 2 a.m., Mom fell, helped her back to bed. This is incredible documentation, Dave said. How many hours per day would you estimate? I don't know. I'm always on call. Even at night, I have monitors in case they need help. So essentially, 24/7 availability? I guess. Dave pulled out his phone calculator. Professional in home care in this area runs about $25 an hour. Even if we're conservative and say you're actively working 12 hours a day, that's $300 daily, times 6 years. He showed me the screen. The number made my vision blur. That can't be right. It's probably low, Dave said. This doesn't include overtime, holiday pay, or hazard pay for medical emergencies. And if they promised you the house in exchange for care, that's a verbal contract? Bailey leaned forward. Margaret, they owe you, legally. But they're my parents, who are about to sell your home out from under you to fund your sister's dreams, Dave said bluntly, while calling your 6 years of sacrifice free rent. The words hit like a physical blow. I thought about Emily's postcards, her gallery dreams, my parents' proud voices on that video call. What would I have to do? I asked quietly. Dave smiled. Document everything, formal invoices, legal notices. If they want to sell that house, they'll have to pay you first, and depending on the home's value versus what they owe you, they might not be able to sell at all. I stared at my journal, at 6 years of my life reduced to careful entries in black ink. All those nights I'd stayed up documenting everything, thinking I was just being thorough. Maybe I'd been building a case without knowing it. How long do I have? How long until they list the house? I thought about Emily's excited voice, her gallery plans. Soon, maybe weeks. Dave pulled out a business card. Then we'd better get started. Walking back to my car, Bailey grabbed my arm. You don't have to feel guilty about this. They made their choice when they decided to throw you away for Emily's dreams. I looked back at the house as I pulled into the driveway. My prison, my sacrifice, maybe, finally, my weapon. Inside, Mom called out, Margaret, could you help me with my compression stockings? Coming, Mom, I called back. But for the first time in 6 years, I wasn't rushing to answer. Dave's office smelled like leather and coffee. I sat across from his mahogany desk, 6 journals stacked between us like evidence at a crime scene. This is remarkable, Dave said, flipping through the pages. Most people don't keep records like this. I used to work in project management. Documentation was everything. He paused at an entry from 2 years ago. Listen to this. Mom fell in bathroom at 3 a.m., found her on floor, conscious but disoriented. Called paramedics, rode an ambulance, stayed at hospital until 8 a.m., came home, gave dad his morning medications, then returned to hospital for discharge planning. Home by 2 p.m. No sleep in 36 hours. My chest tightened, remembering that night. She broke her wrist. And you handled everything, alone. Dave turned more pages. Here's another one. Dad's chest pains started during dinner, called 911, followed ambulance to ER, stayed until 4 a.m. while they ran tests. False alarm, but had to arrange follow up with cardiologist. Missed my own dentist appointment. I rescheduled a lot of things. Margaret, when's the last time you saw a doctor for yourself? I tried to remember. I don't know. Maybe 3 years ago. Dave made a note. We'll add that to the damages. Neglect of your own health due to caregiving responsibilities. He pulled out a calculator. Based on these logs, you're working an average of 16 hours a day of active care plus overnight availability. That's well beyond what any professional caregiver would handle. What does that mean in dollars? He showed me the screen. The number was staggering. $650,000. Conservative estimate. My hands went numb. That's more than the house is worth. Exactly, which means they can't sell without settling with you first. And if they can't pay, he smiled. Well, let's just say Emily's gallery dreams might hit a snag. Can they fight this? With what? You have documentation they can't dispute. Every medication administered, every appointment attended, every emergency handled. This isn't some vague claim. This is a paper trail that would make an accountant weep with joy. Dave's assistant knocked and entered. The documents are ready. She handed him a thick folder. Dave pulled out official looking papers with letterhead and legal seals. Invoice for services rendered, he said, sliding the first document across. Itemized breakdown of care provided, hours worked, and compensation due. The second document was thicker. Notice of lien against the property. This gets filed with the county today. They can't sell, refinance, or transfer ownership without addressing your claim first. What happens when I give them these? They'll probably call their own lawyer. Then that lawyer will tell them exactly what I'm telling you. They're screwed. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Where are you? Dad needs his afternoon medications. I showed Dave the message. See, even when I'm gone for 2 hours, they panic. Perfect. That supports the 24/7 availability claim. He gathered the documents. Margaret, I need you to understand something. Once you serve these papers, there's no going back. Your relationship with your family will change permanently. It already has. They just don't know it yet. Dave nodded approvingly. Good, because they're going to try every manipulation tactic in the book: guilt, anger, threats, promises they should have made years ago. Stay strong. I drove home with the documents in a manila envelope on my passenger seat. Each red light felt like a countdown to detonation. The house looked different as I pulled into the driveway. Not like home anymore, but like a business transaction. A very expensive business transaction. Margaret? Mom's voice carried from the living room before I'd even closed the front door. Where have you been? Your father's been asking for his pills for an hour. I found Dad in his recliner, looking genuinely distressed. I didn't know where you went. You never just disappear like that. I had an appointment. What kind of appointment? Mom appeared in the doorway, suspicious. Legal consultation. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Legal consultation about what? Dad's voice had an edge I rarely heard. I set the envelope on the coffee table. About this. Mom picked it up, her hands shaking slightly as she pulled out the documents. Her face went white as she read. Brian, you need to see this. Dad struggled to lean forward as Mom handed him the papers. I watched his expression change from confusion to shock to anger. $650,000. His voice cracked. Are you out of your mind? That's what professional care costs. We're your parents. Mom's voice pitched higher. You can't charge us for helping family. Emily's getting 600,000 for her gallery. I'm asking for payment for 6 years of work. That's completely different. Dad slammed the papers down. Emily's pursuing her dreams. You're just what? Just taking care of you? Just giving up my entire life? Just being dependable? Mom sank into her chair. We gave you a place to live. We fed you. You gave me a job, I said quietly, and now I'm billing you for it. Dad's face turned red. This is extortion. No, Dad, this is accounting. We'll fight this, Mom said, her voice shaking. We'll get our own lawyer. Good. Have them call Dave. His number's on the letterhead. I headed for the stairs, leaving them with the documents that would change everything. Margaret, Dad called after me. You can't be serious about this. I paused on the bottom step. I'm as serious as you were about selling my home to fund Emily's dreams. This house was never yours. Then neither was my labor. In my room, I opened my current journal and wrote, Day 2, Scene 191. Served legal notice. The game has changed. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like I was winning. We need to have a family meeting, I announced at breakfast 3 days later. All of us, including Emily. Mom looked up from her toast, dark circles under her eyes. She'd barely slept since I'd served the papers. Emily's busy with her gallery preparations. She can make time. This affects her too. Dad set down his coffee cup harder than necessary. Margaret, if you think we're going to let you hold this family hostage, Saturday night, 7 o'clock, I'll cook. We're not doing this, Mom said firmly. We're not playing your games. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Hi, Emily. It's Margaret. Oh my God. Finally. Mom and Dad told me about your little stunt. Have you lost your mind? Family dinner Saturday, 7 o'clock. I'm not coming to watch you extort our parents. Then you'll miss hearing about the lien on the house, the one that prevents them from selling it to fund your gallery. Silence on the other end. What lien? The legal claim I filed against the property for unpaid caregiving services. Turns out they can't sell the house until they pay me what they owe. That's impossible. You can't just. I can, and I did. Ask their lawyer. Oh, wait. They haven't called one yet because they're hoping this will just go away. More silence. Saturday, 7 o'clock, I repeated. Bring Prince if you want. This concerns him too. I hung up before she could respond. Mom stared at me. You had no right to involve Emily in this. Emily's been involved since the moment you decided to sell my home to fund her dreams. Saturday arrived like a storm front. I spent the afternoon cooking pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans. The same meal I'd made for countless family dinners over the years, back when I thought I was part of the family instead of just the help. Emily arrived first, her key still working, despite living 3 states away for the past 5 years. She swept into the kitchen like she owned the place, Prince trailing behind her with his man bun and paint stained jeans. This is insane, Margaret, she said without preamble. You're destroying our family over money. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just asking to be paid for my work. Work? Taking care of your own parents isn't work, it's obligation. Prince cleared his throat. Maybe we should wait for. No, Emily cut him off. I want to understand how my sister became so greedy. I set down the carving knife and turned to face her. Tell me about your gallery, Emily. How much do you need? That's not relevant. 600,000. That's what mom and dad promised you from the house sale. $600,000 to follow your dreams while I gave up mine. You didn't give up anything. You were working some dead end marketing job. I was building a career. I had a promotion coming, a corner office, a 401k. I gave it all up to move back here. Because you wanted to. Because they needed me. Because dad had a heart attack and mom couldn't handle the medications and the appointments and the insurance paperwork because someone had to sacrifice, and it sure as hell wasn't going to be you. Emily's face flushed. I offered to help. You offered to visit twice a year and send postcards from your adventures. Mom and Dad entered the dining room, moving slowly. Dad's walker squeaked against the hardwood. Smells wonderful, dear, Mom said, her voice artificially bright. Just like old times. We sat around the table that had hosted thousands of family meals, the same table where I'd helped Dad with his physical therapy exercises, the same table where I'd sorted pills and organized medical paperwork and planned grocery lists around their dietary restrictions. So, Emily said, cutting into her pot roast, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room? Which elephant? Dad asked. The one where your sister is trying to bankrupt us, or the one where she's preventing you from opening your gallery? Both, I guess. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. Actually, let's talk about this elephant. I placed a document on the table. Emily leaned forward to read it. What is this? A professional caregiver contract. This is what mom and dad would pay if they hired someone to do what I've been doing. Prince whistled low. $25 an hour? That's the going rate, and that's just for basic care, emergency response, medical advocacy, household management. Those are extra. This is ridiculous, Mom said. We're not strangers hiring help. We're family. Family that was planning to sell my home without telling me. It's not your home, Dad's voice boomed. We never said it was your home. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a recording app. Actually, you did. I pressed play. Dad's voice filled the room. Don't worry about the future, Margaret. This house will be yours someday. You're the one taking care of us. It's only fair. The silence was deafening. When did you record that? Mom whispered. Last Christmas, when you were trying to convince me not to take that job offer in Denver. Emily stared at the phone. You've been recording us? I've been documenting everything. Every conversation about my future, every promise about the house, every time you told me not to worry because I'd be taken care of. I pulled out another document. This is the lien filing. It's already been recorded with the county. You can't sell this house, refinance it, or transfer ownership until my claim is resolved. Prince looked confused. What does that mean for the gallery? Emily's face crumpled. It means there is no gallery. Not unless they can come up with $650,000 some other way, I said. Dad's hands shook as he reached for his water glass. You're destroying this family. No, Dad. I'm just finally charging for my services. The pot roast grew cold as we sat in silence, the weight of 6 years of lies and broken promises settling over us like a shroud. Emily was the first to speak. I hate you for this. I know, I said, but you'll hate me with a roof over your head because I'm not going anywhere until this is settled. The explosion came the next morning. We talked to a lawyer, Dad announced, barging into the kitchen where I was preparing his medications. You can't do this. Mom followed behind him, clutching a folder. Harold says family members can't charge for caregiving. It's called natural obligation. I continued sorting pills into the weekly dispenser. Harold's a real estate lawyer, not an elder care specialist. He knows the law? Then he should have told you about the documentation requirements for proving natural obligation. I snapped the pill dispenser shut. Did you show him my journals? Their silence was answer enough. Here's your morning medications, Dad. Same time as always. Same routine I've followed for 6 years. The same routine Harold's going to have a hard time explaining away in court. Emily stormed in from the living room, phone in hand. I just got off the phone with the gallery owner. He's giving the space to someone else, someone who can actually pay. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You planned this. You wanted to destroy my dreams. Emily, I didn't even know about your gallery until I overheard Mom and Dad promising to sell my home to fund it. Your home? Emily's voice pitched higher. This was never your home. You're just the daughter who couldn't make it on her own. The words hit like a slap. Couldn't make it on my own? You moved back here because you had nowhere else to go. No boyfriend, no real career, no life. At least I built something. You built something with their money. Every art class, every studio rental, every finding yourself trip to Europe. They paid for all of it while I worked 60-hour weeks to afford my own apartment. That's not the same thing. You're right, it's worse, because when they needed help, where were you? Painting in Prague while I was cleaning up Dad's vomit at 3 in the morning. Mom stepped between us. Stop it, both of you. No, I said, pulling out my current journal. Let's not stop. Let's talk about what Emily was doing while I was here. I flipped to a marked page. March 15th, 2 years ago, Dad's second heart attack. I called Emily to tell her we were in the ICU. She said she couldn't come because she had an art show opening. That show was important for my career. April 3rd, same year, Mom fell and broke her wrist. Emily was in California at a retreat. Couldn't be bothered to call back for 3 days. I was in the mountains. There was no cell service. September 22nd, Dad's emergency surgery. Emily sent a card. Emily's face was red now. I can't drop everything every time there's a crisis. But I could. I did. For 6 years, I dropped everything: my job, my relationships, my entire life. And you know what I got for it? Free rent and a sister who thinks I'm a failure. You are a failure, Emily screamed. You're 38 years old, living with your parents. You have no life, no friends, no future. At least I'm trying to build something. The kitchen went dead silent. Even Dad's breathing seemed to stop. You're right, I said quietly. I don't have a life. I gave it up for them. But you know what I do have? I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. I have documentation of every sacrifice I made. Every night I stayed up with Dad when he couldn't breathe. Every time I canceled plans because Mom needed me. Every opportunity I passed up because this family needed a caretaker. I scrolled through the recordings. And I have this conversation where my beloved sister calls me a failure for giving up my life to care for our parents. Emily's face went white. You recorded this? I record everything now. Amazing what you learn when people think you're just the dependable one who doesn't fight back. Prince, who'd been silent through the whole exchange, finally spoke up. Emily, maybe we should. Shut up, Prince! Emily whirled on him. This is family business. Actually, I said, Prince should hear this, especially the part where you told him your parents were giving you $600,000 for the gallery. Prince looked confused. What about it? Tell him where that money was supposed to come from, Emily. Emily's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The house, I continued. They were going to sell the house I've been living in, caring for them and sacrificing my life in, and give you the money without telling me, without compensating me. Just surprise. You're homeless, but Emily gets her dream gallery. Prince stared at Emily. You didn't tell me that. It doesn't matter now. Emily's voice cracked. She's ruined everything anyway. No, Mom said suddenly. We ruined everything. Everyone turned to stare at her. Vivian, Dad started. No, Brian. She's right. We promised Margaret the house. We let her give up her life for us. And then we were going to throw her away like she never mattered. We weren't throwing her away, Dad protested. We were helping Emily by betraying Margaret. Mom's voice was barely a whisper, by treating our dependable daughter like she was disposable. Emily looked between our parents, panic in her eyes. You can't be taking her side. There are no sides, Mom said. There's just what's right. And this isn't right. Dad slumped against the counter. The house is all we have. If we pay Margaret what she's asking, then we'll figure something else out, Mom said firmly. But we won't cheat our daughter out of what she's earned. Emily stared at them in disbelief. So that's it? My dreams don't matter? Your dreams matter, I said, but they don't matter more than basic fairness. I'll never forgive you for this, Emily said, tears streaming down her face. I know, I replied, but at least you'll never be able to say I didn't fight for what I deserved. She stormed out, Prince trailing behind her, leaving me alone with my parents and the wreckage of our family dinner. So what happens now? Dad asked. I looked at the pill dispenser in my hands, at the routine that had defined my life for so long. Now we figure out how to move forward, I said. All of us. But I wasn't sure any of us knew how to do that anymore. 3 days later, Mom dropped the bombshell. There's something we need to tell you, she said, fidgeting with her coffee cup. Dad sat beside her at the kitchen table, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. What now? Mom pulled out a thick folder. We got the house appraised for the sale to Emily. And it's not worth what we thought. Her voice was barely a whisper. The market's changed and we took out a second mortgage 5 years ago. I set down my own coffee. What kind of second mortgage? Dad cleared his throat. Emily needed money for art school, the advanced program in New York. It was expensive, but she was so talented and the opportunity. How much? 200,000, Mom said quickly. But we've been paying it down. How much is left? Silence. How much is left on the second mortgage? 180,000, Dad mumbled. I stared at them. So the house is worth what exactly? Mom slid a paper across the table. The appraisal showed $420,000, minus the original mortgage balance of $85,000, minus the second mortgage of $180,000. I did the math. That leaves $155,000, not the $600,000 you promised Emily. We thought the house would appreciate more, Dad said defensively. You mortgaged the house to pay for Emily's education, then promised her money you didn't have using a house that was supposed to be mine as collateral. We were going to figure it out, Mom said. Figure what out? You owe me $650,000. The house equity is $155,000. Even if you sold it and paid off everything, you'd still owe me $500,000. The color drained from Dad's face. We don't have $500,000. I know. Margaret, you have to be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm asking for payment for services rendered, the same way Emily asked for payment for her art school. That's different. How? You borrowed against this house to invest in Emily's future. Now you owe me for investing in your care. It's the same principle. Mom started crying. We can't pay you. We don't have the money. Then we have a problem. My phone rang. Dave's number. I need to take this. I stepped into the hallway. Hi, Dave. Margaret, I've been reviewing the property records. There's something you need to know. About the second mortgage? You know about that? They just told me. Emily's art school money. There's more. They also took out a home equity line of credit last year. Another 50,000. My stomach dropped. For what? According to the paperwork, Emily's living expenses while she prepared her gallery proposal. I closed my eyes. So they owe even more than they told me. The total debt against the house is $280,000. With the current appraisal, there's only about $140,000 in equity left. Dave, they can't pay me. I know, which gives you some interesting options, such as foreclosure. Your lien takes priority over their ability to sell. If they can't pay you, you can force the sale of the house and take what's owed from the proceeds. That would leave them homeless. That's not your problem. They created this situation. I walked back into the kitchen where my parents sat in stunned silence. That was my lawyer, I said. He told me about the home equity line, the other 50,000 you borrowed for Emily. Dad's head dropped into his hands. So let me get this straight. You borrowed $250,000 against this house to fund Emily's dreams, dreams that never materialized into actual income, and now you can't pay me for 6 years of work because you spent my inheritance on my sister. We didn't know, Mom started. You didn't know what? That promises have consequences? That borrowing money means you have to pay it back? That I might actually expect compensation for sacrificing my entire adult life? Margaret, please. Please what? Please pretend this is okay? Please accept that Emily's failed art career was more important than my actual labor? The front door slammed. Emily's voice carried from the entryway. I came to get some of my things, she called out. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her eyes red from crying. Don't worry, I'm not staying. Emily, Mom said, we need to talk. About what? About how Margaret destroyed everything. I already know. About the money, I said. The money they borrowed against the house to pay for your art school and living expenses. Emily froze. Oh, what money? Dad looked up. Sweetheart, we took out some loans to help with your education. How much? $250,000, I said, borrowed against the house that was supposed to be mine. Emily's face went white. That's not possible. I slid the mortgage documents across the table. Second mortgage for your New York program, home equity line for your gallery preparation, all secured by this house. Emily sank into a chair, staring at the papers. I didn't know you borrowed this much. We wanted to support your dreams, Mom said. By stealing mine, I added. I didn't ask you to steal anything, Emily snapped. I didn't know about any of this. But you knew they were giving you 600,000 for the gallery. Where did you think that money was coming from? I thought they had savings or investments or you didn't think at all. You just assumed they'd figure out how to make your dreams come true, regardless of the cost to anyone else. Emily stared at the documents, her hands shaking. I can't pay this back. The gallery fell through. I don't have a job. Prince and I are barely making rent. I know, I said, which means they can't pay me either. So what happens now? Dad asked. I looked around the kitchen where I'd spent 6 years of my life. The same kitchen where I'd prepared thousands of meals, sorted countless medications, and planned my entire existence around their needs. Now I decide whether to foreclose on the house or work out a payment plan that will take the rest of your lives to complete. The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of broken promises and impossible debts. I need time to think, I said finally. Margaret, Emily said quietly, I'm sorry. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. I left them sitting at the table with the mortgage papers scattered between them like the pieces of our shattered family. In my room, I opened my journal and wrote, Day 2, 198. The house of cards is falling down, and I'm the one holding the matches. The meeting was set for Tuesday at 2 p.m. in Dave's conference room. My parents brought Harold, their real estate lawyer, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Emily came alone. Prince had apparently decided this wasn't his fight anymore. Let's get straight to the point, Harold said, adjusting his glasses. My clients are willing to offer a settlement of $50,000 to resolve this matter. Dave didn't even look up from his notes. 50,000 for 650,000 in documented services? That's insulting. It's what they can afford. Then they can't afford to keep the house. Harold shifted uncomfortably. There has to be some middle ground here. These are family members, not strangers in a business transaction. Family members who promised my client a house in exchange for caregiving, then secretly mortgaged that house to fund the other daughter's lifestyle. Dave replied coldly. Emily flinched. It wasn't a lifestyle, it was my education. $250,000 for art school? Dave raised an eyebrow. That's more than most people spend on medical school. The program was prestigious and unsuccessful, apparently, since you're not earning enough to pay back the loans. That's enough, Dad said sharply. We're here to find a solution, not assign blame. Actually, I said, speaking for the first time, we're here because you created a problem you can't solve. You promised me a house, then spent the house on Emily. Now you want me to accept pennies on the dollar for 6 years of my life. Mom dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Margaret, we're your parents. Surely that means something. It meant everything. That's why I gave up my career, my relationships, my entire future to take care of you, and you repaid that sacrifice by planning to make me homeless. Harold cleared his throat. Perhaps we could structure a payment plan. With what income? Dave interrupted. They're both on fixed retirement benefits. At 50,000 a year, it would take them 13 years to pay the full amount. They'll be dead before the debt is settled. The brutal math hung in the air like a death sentence. There is another option, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. I take the house. You move into assisted living. The equity covers part of what you owe me, and I forgive the rest. Absolutely not, Dad said immediately. We're not leaving our home. It's not your home anymore. You mortgaged it away to pay for Emily's dreams. We can get a reverse mortgage, Mom said desperately. Use that to pay you. Dave shook his head. With the existing liens, no bank will approve a reverse mortgage. The house is already over leveraged. Emily had been silent through most of the meeting, staring at her hands. Finally, she looked up. What if I declare bankruptcy? Would that help? How? Harold asked. The loans were for my benefit. Maybe I could take responsibility for them, discharge them in bankruptcy, and free up the house equity. Dave considered this. The loans are secured by the house, not by you personally. Your bankruptcy wouldn't affect the liens. So we're stuck, Dad said flatly. You're stuck, I corrected. I have options. I can foreclose and force the sale. I can wait until you die and collect from the estate. Or I can accept a settlement that's actually reasonable. What would be reasonable? Harold asked. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. The house plus 100,000 in cash. We don't have 100,000 in cash, Mom protested. Then sell something. Dad's classic car collection, Mom's jewelry, the antique furniture. Liquidate your retirement accounts. Figure it out. That's our entire life savings, Dad said. And the last 6 years were my entire life. The difference is, you chose to spend your savings on Emily. I didn't choose to give up my life. You asked me to. And I did it because I loved you. Emily finally spoke up. What if I get a job? A real job, not art stuff. I could help pay. With what skills? I asked. You have a degree in fine arts and 6 years of failed gallery attempts. What kind of job are you going to get that pays enough to make a dent in this debt? I could learn something new, go back to school. With what money? You're already broke and now you want to take on more debt? Harold leaned forward. Margaret, what you're asking for would leave your parents with nothing. What they were planning would have left me with nothing. At least they'd have their social security and pensions. I'd have been 38 years old with no savings, no career, and no home. But we're family, Mom whispered. Family doesn't promise someone a house and then sell it out from under them. Family doesn't mortgage away someone's future to pay for someone else's dreams. Family doesn't call 6 years of sacrifice free rent. The room fell silent except for the sound of Mom's quiet crying. Dave pulled out the foreclosure papers. I need a decision. Either we settle this today with the house plus cash, or I file these papers tomorrow morning. Dad stared at the documents. If we give you the house, where are we supposed to live? That's not my problem anymore, I said, standing up. You had 6 years to figure out how to honor your promises. Instead, you spent that time figuring out how to break them. I walked to the door, then turned back. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, the decision gets made for you. I left them sitting in that conference room with the weight of their choices crushing down on them. Outside, I called Bailey. How did it go? She asked. I gave them an ultimatum, the house plus cash, or I foreclose. How do you feel? I looked back at the building where my family was probably still arguing about money they didn't have and promises they couldn't keep. Like I'm finally fighting for myself, I said, and I'm going to win. The call came at 6 a.m. the next morning. We accept your terms. Dad's voice was hollow through the phone. The house and 100,000. I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. All of it? Harold found a way to liquidate our retirement accounts without too much penalty. We'll have the cash by Friday. And the house? We'll sign the deed over to you. We found a senior community about 20 minutes away. We can move in next month. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty. Okay, I'll have Dave draw up the papers. Margaret, Dad's voice cracked, I want you to know, we never meant for it to happen this way. I know, Dad, but it did happen this way. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my childhood bedroom, surrounded by 6 years of journals and documentation. I'd won, so why did it feel like everyone had lost? The paperwork took 2 weeks to finalize. During that time, my parents moved through the house like ghosts, packing up 40 years of memories. Emily came by once to help, but she and I barely spoke. On moving day, I stood in the driveway watching the movers load their furniture into the truck. Mom emerged from the house carrying a small box. These are for you, she said, holding out the box. Photo albums, from when you and Emily were little. I took the box, surprised by its weight. Mom, we made mistakes, Margaret. Terrible mistakes. But we did love you. We do love you. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I wonder if we made you feel like you didn't matter. Like Emily was more important. I looked at my mother, really looked at her. She seemed smaller somehow, frailer. The move had aged her. Emily was always your favorite, I said quietly, but I understood why. She was bright and creative and full of dreams. I was just practical. You were dependable. We took that for granted. We took you for granted. Dad appeared in the doorway, leaning heavily on his walker. The truck's loaded. We should go. Mom hugged me then, a real hug, not the perfunctory ones we'd exchanged for years. I'm sorry, sweetheart, for all of it. I'm sorry too, I said, and meant it. After they left, I walked through the empty house. My footsteps echoed in rooms that had been filled with furniture and memories just hours before. In the kitchen, I found Emily sitting at the counter. I thought you'd left with them, I said. I wanted to talk to you, alone. I poured 2 cups of coffee from the pot I'd made that morning. About what? About how much I hate you right now. I set her cup down. Fair enough. But also about how much I hate myself. That surprised me. Emily? No. Let me finish. You were right about everything. I was spoiled. I was selfish. I took their money and your sacrifice for granted because it was easier than admitting I wasn't as talented as everyone pretended. You are talented. I'm mediocre. Good enough to get into expensive programs, not good enough to make a living. And instead of facing that, I kept taking their money and pretending the next opportunity would be different. She stared into her coffee. Prince left me, by the way, said he couldn't be with someone who destroyed her own family over money. I'm sorry. Are you? Because I destroyed your family too. I'm the reason they mortgaged the house. I'm the reason they broke their promise to you. They made their own choices. Choices I made easy for them. Every time I called asking for money, every time I painted some picture of my bright future, I was asking them to choose between us. And they always chose me. We sat in silence, drinking coffee in the empty kitchen. What happens now? Emily asked. I don't know. I own a house I never really wanted, and you're starting over with nothing. Maybe that's what I need to actually start over without their safety net. Maybe. Emily stood up. For what it's worth, I understand why you did this, and I understand why you had to win. Did I win? Because it doesn't feel like winning. You got what you were owed. That's not nothing. After she left, I walked through the house one more time. In my old bedroom, I found my final journal entry from the night before. Day 2212. The house is mine. The debt is settled. The family is scattered. I fought for what I deserved and I got it. They taught me to value sacrifice. I just never realized it would be mine to collect. I closed the journal and packed it with the others. 6 years of documentation, reduced to a stack of books that would probably never be opened again. My phone buzzed. A text from Bailey. How are you holding up? I typed back, I'm free. Good free or bad free? I looked around the empty house at the space that was finally, legally, undeniably mine. Just free, I replied. And for the first time in 6 years, that felt like enough. I picked up my keys and walked out the front door, locking it behind me. The house would be here when I got back. It would always be here now. But first, I had a life to rebuild.